I was open to failure, quite frankly. I was like, even if this is a bust, I would feel better at the end of this doing it anyway.
Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we get real about what it takes to succeed, whether it's in business, life, or both. I'm talking to game-changing and visionary women who've broken barriers, built empires, and redefined success on their own terms. They'll share their strategies, secrets, and the no BS advice you need to rise to the top. I'm your host, Jennifer Justice, also known as JJ. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. I'm Jennifer Justice. Today, we have Cara Brothers. She's the president of Starface. Hi, Cara. How are you?
Hey, Jennifer. I'm doing okay. How are you?
Doing okay for a Monday morning in the middle of summer.
Exactly.
We all wish we were in Europe, in the sea.
Exactly.
As good as we possibly can. I mean, in my instance, my kids are still 2 weeks out on their sleepaway camp. So, I'm still like, yeah. Love it. It's like a love-hate situation. I hate not being with them, but like it's kind of nice to be like, oh, this is what my life used to be like. So yeah. What about you?
I
Summer?
can't wait for that. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I both can't wait for sleepaway camp and also feel the same. We are spending the month of August in Italy. They're in a summer camp in Italy, and I'm just so excited. But I do like this is such first world problems. But I've been in New York for like every weekend, every day for, weeks and weeks at a time, and I get kind of bored. I got to be honest
Yeah.
with you. So that's how I feel.
New York City, you heard it first here.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's get into it. First of all, explain if people don't know what Starface is, what it is.
Yes. Okay. So Starface launched in 2019. Wow. And we exist to make the whole growing up and coming of age experience like way more fun. And we start by doing that through acne, like a lot of us growing up, everything that was on the counter that had to do with acne was super boring and super medicinal and had no joy or life to it at all. And so Starface exists to just flip that entire experience on its head. And we do that by um, placing these really bright, colorful pimple patches on faces all over the world. And it's a tremendous amount of fun and it's very creative and weird and joyful brand. I'm glad to be here.
And how did that start? Were you part of the starting team? Like tell us a little more background. I mean, obviously the joy, et cetera. So, I have a lot of people who listen to the podcast who have tweens or soon to be tweens. And you see, the kids with a star on their face, et cetera, for acne. I mean, it's genius. And also allows them to be like, this is a part of life. Let's not like hide it. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Under makeup and stuff like that, which only makes it worse. Like, what was how did this start? Who came up with the idea, et cetera?
Yes, yes. Okay. So the founders are Brian and Julie, and Julie has been in the beauty industry or was in the beauty industry for decades, right? And she was a beauty editor, and she had acne herself, and she was just like, "Wait, what? This is whack. I don't like any of this. It's not interesting. I have to hide it behind, a medicine cabinet." Um, and so I think she literally started to tease the idea of a Starface pimple patch to her audience, and people were like, "Yes." So I joined about a year into the business. I was an early employee, maybe 6, 7, 8, something like that. And I joined as basically a chief of staff, where I was just like another executive, kind of organizing the company, putting some structure around it. And then eventually I took over the company as president of the business about a year later. And so I've been doing that for about 3.5 years.
And what was your background before that to get into this, and what enticed you to get into something like this? Because startups aren't always easy, right? And
They're
so like
not.
these are two first time founders, right?
That's a good question. I think they had some other things going before this, but this is absolutely their biggest company for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I was a tech girly before this. I worked at Google for about a decade, and I worked in some ad tech startups before Google. And I really was making my way, finding what I liked in terms of the career woman. I started in sales. I ended at Google at corporate strategy. So that was my first kind of foray into like high impact deal making, working with C-suite, organizing information, building relationships, bureaucracy, all that jazz. But at my heart, I've always been this kind of quirky businesswoman, this someone who likes to build and kind of make structure out of a lot of mess. So even that whole time, I was just like, okay, I'm doing fine, but this isn't that interesting to me, if I'm honest. And I don't feel like I'm exploding with potential or joy. So I always kind of had this inkling that there was something about entrepreneurship that was probably like an itch that I wanted to scratch. So I spent a lot of time trying to find something like this opportunity. I would be talking to mentors and coaches and friends. And eventually the stars aligned where after Google, I did do a brief stint at an AI company. And I loved that because that was my first time managing entire departments, legal, HR. I was like building a research lab. I was doing all of this, just stuff that I've never even been exposed to before. But the culture was a little tough. So I did kind of leak it to a coach of mine, and she was like, there are these two entrepreneurs who are building really creative, interesting businesses, and they're looking for leaders that are, open-minded but really sharp like you, and happened to be the founders of Starface. But it was after years of trying to search and find something like this, honestly.
Yeah, but is this the first time you were working in a product company, a retail
Yeah,
company?
yes, yeah, yeah. This is my first physical good company in my life. Yeah.
And what was that transition? I mean, we talk a lot about in this podcast about pivots and, just like the sad fact that, a man can be 80%, 70% prepared and like go for
Yep.
something. Whereas, a woman feels like she has to be like 120%. But not only that, they're also judged, right? Men on potential and women on, experience. So, I'm always interested in the mindset that got you to change to be like, okay, and I know I've never done this before. So who are you to think you can do this?
Yes, seriously. You know what's really interesting, Jennifer? For better or worse, I have never had that. I need to have everything right necessarily before doing something. And it's not without an imposter syndrome. Like I heard Martha Stewart say that, like, what? Imposter syndrome? What is that? It's not that. I've always had a voice in my head that's been like, oh God, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know, like, blah, blah, blah. But so what, right? Like, I just care more about enjoying myself and enjoying what I'm doing at work or not at work. And so it's almost like I have no choice but to um, try new things, frankly.
Yeah.
Like it's inherently in my personality.
I mean, that's good. And you're very lucky. I would say to Martha Stewart, imposter syndrome, it's one thing when you're in a business that women are traditionally supposed to do: cooking, cleaning, and
It's true.
decorating. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Where we start to see it and feel it. And I know people don't even like to use the word anymore, but it's really just being uncomfortable and thinking that you don't belong there because no one looks like you around you, right?
Oh my
And
gosh. Yes.
so, if you're in a room in a business that's all dudes, she might have thought differently about this. Later in her life, she had, made a bunch of money and people were coming after her and investing. But it's easier to say that you don't have it when you're surrounded by people who look exactly like you. You're doing something that is totally expected of you, right?
Oh man, that's interesting, and I never thought about that. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, because I think as we grow, we all like gravitate to it. I'm going to do the things that, work for me and not accepted. I mean, what's that woman like, the Don't Give a Damn Club or something like that? I can't remember her name.
I
It's
didn't
like,
see that.
oh yeah. About women in perimenopause and menopause. After a while, you're like, I'm just not going to do that shit or put up with it. Right. But, as you're going through life and you're working in these, what should be amazing companies like a Google and a tech company, et cetera,
Hmm.
to be like, all right, well, I want to transition and try this out. It takes a different mindset. So, kudos to you for that.
I
So
appreciate that.
yeah, when you get in it, right, and you're there and chief of staff and running, like, what was it that was so different that made you feel like more alive and like wanted to like really put your efforts and energy and whatever it is that kept you away from your kids? You know what I mean?
Yes, yes, yes. Oh man. Okay. The truth is that being at a smaller organization, and because the founders and the people that they hired already genuinely had a kind of like, let's go, let's figure it out attitude. Like there was a lighter touch around here than something that's maybe a bit more precious at like a huge company where you kind of fall in line or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a freedom and a culture here already. And I was just like, oh, then let's go. I can pull on that thread all day. So I just kind of like built up a experimentation culture, a culture of coming exactly as you are, to your point. I tried for a little bit to show up as like, all right, now I have to lead a company. I've never done that before. Like, how do I pretend to be President CEO Cara? And then I just dropped all that. I was just like, I'm going to try to just be me 100%, learn, grow, make mistakes. So there was a lot of that just lifted the like mental load too at this job. Um, and then, you hear about how it impacts other people. And then you see the written letters from people in high school being like, "Oh my God, you saved me. Like I didn't want to take this test. I didn't want to go on this date." And so then I'm like, "Oh wow, and I'm making impact. We're making an impact. Like this is fun. This is fun, open-minded, and we kind of matter a little bit." Um, and then, I'd be remiss to say that because I've never done anything before and because the company was kind of hot and is hot, I was like, oh, all right, like this is mine to lose, my opportunity to like,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, do my very best, show up as the best leader that I can kind of thing. And so that's super energizing. And, there's always some naysayers, right? There's always people who are like, eh, I don't want to, you don't know what you're doing. You've never been in beauty. And the haters kind of gave me a little bit of fuel too,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
And you felt that. You felt that within or without the company, the haters, like you don't know what you're doing.
Both.
Both. And when you were doing it, I mean, because this was when you joined a year in, did it have the momentum that it does now?
There's levels to this, right?
At that time, it's kind of hard to say. It's 6 years ago. So it's like, you know, it's become, you know, effervescent in our, communities, right? Seeing kids wear these things. But, I think it's kind of scary for a lot of people. You hear all of these amazing things about startups, right? But then more often it's, and you don't hear about them as much because they don't exist anymore, but like the ones that don't make it. So,
Yes.
for those people starting out in a startup, like what kind of considerations and things were going on that you felt, could be positive or negative when you were doing that, the list of going here?
Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, I mean, I know all of us want to make an impact. I definitely looked at this and looked around and I was like, okay, I think that my leadership skills, my like fast decision making, my tech background and not beauty background might add a lot of value here. So I definitely was like, I think I could do this and I think that I would add value, which I know we all want, regardless. Two, um, it was kind of like because I spent so much time at my previous companies, I was open to failure, quite frankly. I was like, even if this is a bust, I would feel better at the end of this um, doing it anyway. So it
Yeah.
was kind of that risk analysis too. And I genuinely believe that the most interesting people are really well rounded and have a lot of really unique experiences. So even from a vanity metric, I was like, oh, all right. Adding beauty, adding CPG, adding like fully remote leadership skills, adding like creative team management. Um, at the other side of this, I'm probably going to be a more interesting person slash businesswoman. So I guess hearing myself talk out loud, it was about the learning and the growth opportunity that I was so desperate for at the time.
Right. Right. So you had to, it was one of those things. I was just talking to a client recently who, went forward with a bad deal. And it was kind of like, if you didn't do it, you would regret it either way because you won't know,
Exactly.
right? It's like in your mind, it was like it was going to be the biggest thing ever, or you know what I mean? It just, you don't know until you do it.
No
And you have
freaking
to, like,
idea.
yeah, like you said, you had to scratch that itch, right?
Exactly. 100%. Yeah.
And so, all told, you've been there how long now?
About 4.5 years.
Right. And then how much has the company grown in that period of time?
Yeah. Okay. So I joined, I think we were around $5 million annual revenue. We're about $100 million annual revenue now. Um, we had just, or we're about to launch in Target. Now we're in 20,000 doors, 20,000 stores worldwide. Again, I was a single digit employee. We have over 50 or so now. Insane growth, right? Like, and I've changed because it's just like every time, as everybody knows, but as these companies grow and evolve, so do you. So my growth has been exponential as well too.
And when you're at these kind of companies, oftentimes you need like you know, I'm always fascinated by high growth companies like this because it's like you start these and then, you know, the best case scenario happens and you're growing and you need help. You need people to help you to understand how to manage these bigger and bigger teams, right?
Yes, 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 yes. I love that you said that. Help, again, one of my, like, I guess superpowers. There's all like this double-edged sword, of course, but one thing is that I like help. I need help. I'm not scared to ask for it. So in the beginning, I was thinking exactly what you said. I was like, okay, I'm going to need a lot of people around me to support me. I'm going to need to hire people who are down for my leadership style, who know what I bring to the table and can complement that tenfold. And so that was obviously, but that has been the single success point for me in the business too. We have these experts, these leaders, these people who are flexible thinkers who come from a massive amount of expertise in this area, but are also, no, to your point, startups change, they're super annoying sometimes. Like, so you have to kind of have that low ego, I like to say, just because otherwise you're bringing too much control to a really ambiguous environment. And then of course, like, I firmly believe in whether it's a therapist or a coach for leading different teams or letting people go in the best way possible. Like, I always am seeking help,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah. You know, and I wanted to bring this point out on purpose because I know I started this podcast because I was in this meeting with all men and my reputation had been set. I'd been with Jay-Z forever, et cetera. So no one was going to make me feel stupid or feel bad. But a lot of times you don't ask questions because you don't want to sound like you don't know because we're judged so much more harshly as women, right? And women of color, even worse, right? Like, oh, they don't know what they're
Yes,
talking about.
ma'am.
And, you know, when you get in these roles, you have to be in a position to be vulnerable and you have to be in a position to get help and not like hold all this inside you, which I think is what really ends up happening when people hear about women in business being mean or whatever. I think it's just this pent up, like, and no one's really helping them go, it's okay not to know everything. It's okay to be pissed. It's okay to like you've been passed over. It's okay that, you know, you're mad that somebody asked you to take notes and you're like, you know, a C-level exec. Like, it's okay for all of these things and to like give ourselves a break and understand like everyone needs help. Everybody needs help, which is why it's like all of these C-suite, you know, people like Tony, what's his name, you know, Robbins. It's like they're all coached by him, you know, and somebody coaches him. Okay. Like, I don't know who it is.
Exactly.
So, you know, to understand that this is an evolution and as we grow as a gender into more C-suite, you know, roles, which we are and starting our own companies and working for startups, which is something that I encourage so many women to do so they can define their lifestyles a little bit more, you know. I think it's important to say because also, didn't you start this when you had a very young child and then had a child during this?
I did. I did. First of all, I love that you say that so much. Like, I have to say with that, it's true, right? And I don't know if it's the media or you're right, people, the way that people are judging us. Yeah, and I guess, Right. I really love that point that no one is doing this alone. No matter what it looks like, there is no one who is doing this alone. And I hope so much that we can change how that's even perceived. So I really love that you brought that out. Um, yeah, the whole motherhood of it all. I stayed at Google partly because I wanted to have a child there, and I was super scared about that leap from, just the two of us to having a family. Um, and I think if I'm honest with myself, that's probably why I was harder to take a risk on myself because I just didn't know what that world looked like. And after I figured out, like after I got this job at Starface with my son, who was very young, I was like, oh, I could do this. It doesn't mean that it's easy, but I can kind of do whatever I want. Like, but life doesn't stop just because I'm a mother necessarily. I mean, it makes it a lot harder and a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, I had a daughter while at Starface, and you know what else I kind of liked about the startup kind of flexible work environment is that I designed maternity leave. I was very lonely on my first maternity leave, like at Google, which was an absolute blessing, clearly, but it was lonely and I was just bored and I didn't know what to do and blah, blah, blah. It was winter in New York. So I was like, okay, I like this job. I'm not saying that I don't want to be with my family, but I don't want to, I, at the time, didn't want to go into maternity leave cave with my family necessarily. So I kind of designed it where I was like, okay, I want to keep this one thing. I want this one person to update me. Let me know if this pops off. But if I decide to change my mind, see ya, I'm going away for a little while. So
Yeah.
I also say that to say that I've had a lot of people reach out to me recently and just being like, either way, either end of the spectrum. Either, please, I need this time. I'm scared to take the leave, or the opposite. Like, this is not something that I want to do. And so the whole idea of kind of designing something that you might not have seen as before, whether it's the job or the maternity leave or whatever, is like another thread that I'm super interested in right now.
Yeah, yeah, I know. That's, one thing when people have kids and, you do want a maternity leave, not because not only are you exhausted, in particular if you have a C-section like I did, like
Me
it's
too.
your surgery, you need to have it. But after a while, when you get in the groove and if you have any help, you know what I mean, which, most of us have had or do have,
Absolutely.
um, you do get bored and your brain turns to mush, so you want to keep sharp, you want to keep a little like edge in there. And there's nothing wrong
Exactly.
with that either. It's
I
like,
love it.
yes, you should take the maternity leave, but if you can, dip in and out here and there, then, or, keep a portion of it, that's your prerogative as well. You know what I mean? Okay, so you've been there 4.5 years. You're the president, and you have these two young kids, and this company that has gone from 5 million to 100, which is crazy. And then, so what else is keeping you, energized? I mean, not like you need anything else, but I know that like, sometimes you get so lost in your own whatever. You know what I mean? To like to take care of yourself.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that. I There's a couple of things. I mean, one is I can't help but to be like an observer of the world and the moment that we're in right now, whether it's politically in the United States or globally or whatever the hell. And I just am not feeling it, and I just stand on the side of like, there's got to be a better way. Again, this is like who I am. This is who I was as a child. Um, and so I'm just starting to play with like, what would it look like if we didn't all retreat into our corners of familiarity or people who looked like us or religions that we were comfortable with? And what if we just kind of like, I don't know, came back together. And I'm really just playing with this in a really lighthearted way through media, like I'm starting my own kind of podcast that maybe turns into a sitcom. I'm thinking about membership committees. Like I'm really exploring this thread, which is just a lot of fun. I think I'm someone who needs a creative project. I know, to your point, like I don't need anything, but my brain is busy. It doesn't mean I'm not a super like, what's it called? Hustle culture woman, honestly, either. Like I'll take a nap, I'll have a slow morning. But if I have an idea or something that I'm passionate about, like it's worth not acting on it. So that's kind of a fun thread that I'm playing with right now.
And do you find in this, because we hear about like startup culture being so intense, and we just talked about how you had kids and whatever, and doing that, like, and you referred to it a little bit earlier, kind of a more malleable, do you think that is common where you are at Starface for that to be a little more malleable? Because when you look at um, the TV shows based on we work in Uber, it didn't seem like that at all. It's like if you weren't working at 3 a.m. and I worked at a startup, entertainment that like had a lot of leverage in the beginning, but it was a grind, really big grind. You were definitely expected to be answering emails and stuff on Saturdays and Sundays and working and whatever and be available.
I love that. Oh, yeah, yeah, that just grinds my bones. Look, I mean, I'll say a couple of things here. One is what stands out to me about what you said is like expect. This word, like I was expected to answer emails on Saturday. I've been in environments where I was expected, and some of them startups, to answer Saturday emails, expected to like a lot, whatever. A lot of that stuff can be gamified. A lot of people that I know back in the day would schedule their emails at an odd hour to prove to their boss, that like they're working hard. First of all, that is ridiculous to me. Like honestly, then we've lost the plot. What I expect, and what's expected of me is high results on the freaking business. And a retention rate where people are not screaming for the hills and like burning out and all this kind of stuff. And so for me it's like what matters here? And then is the rest pretending? And then I hate to say it, but a lot of it is like work smarter, not harder for me.
Mhm.
Where it's like, and I've had to been taught that, and I still will have to as I get in different spaces. But I tell a lot of people who are like earlier in their career, spending an hour on an email is not necessarily a good thing. Spending an hour on that deck, is like, that might be a smarter way that you can do this. But then I'll say, lastly, like I fully understand that there are levels to this. Some people are billionaires. Some people make a tremendous amount of money. Some people, so it's like maybe there does need to be a different level of hustle if there's some different North Star that you're aiming for. Um, but for me and my business and myself and my family, like the success metrics don't necessarily dictate something around the clock.
Right. Yes. And, but I think we've all felt that when we've worked around the clock.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
this is definitely something that could have been handled on a Monday. And it was like FaceTime to have FaceTime. And, now we know it's like, even with AI that helps, go through our emails or, draft the emails or whatever it is. It's like there's so much busy work that was being done. And it's funny, like scheduling the calls, scheduling the emails. It's like, so they'd pop up on a Saturday. Like, so fucking lame,
It's
first of
so
all.
lame.
Number two, like I do the opposite. Like I do want to get stuff done on the weekends, like, and I will schedule it to go to Monday morning or even at night. Like if it's like it's 7 o'clock, I'm like, oh, I just want to do this email, but I don't want to engage. Like it's scheduled for 8 a.m. So if you get 8 a.m. on the dot emails from me, I've scheduled it.
Me
Okay.
too.
I've thought about it and I scheduled it because it is so insane. Even in law school, we were taught, like I went to Cornell Law School. It's like super intense. They were like, you guys can study as much as you want, but you should know your brain doesn't work that way. It works for 45 minutes and you need a 15-minute break. It just doesn't work. So you can stay in the office all you want. And the music industry has this whole thing. It's like, ooh, who can stay late? I'm sorry you don't like your wives and you don't want to go home. That's not my fucking problem. Okay. Like
Ding,
it's not,
ding, ding.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So being the CEO, like the president of the company, you are setting the tone and the leadership, right? And so how do
Yeah.
you get that across to your team?
Yeah, I love what you said. I do the same, right? Like, yeah, I have a nice productive, Sunday afternoon where I am doing emails and I am strategizing for my week, but I'll schedule it later, and I will tell them that. Also, if I make a mistake, which I do all the freaking time, and I'm slacking someone just because I'm up at 7:30 with my kids, and then I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry, I did not mean to do that, and so I will like note, and then also, you know. if the business is doing well, everything's humming along, we got our things planned out for the future, we're like feeling good about our work. There are moments in like our calendar that I feel like people are not working that hard anyway, like a 4th of July week here in the United States, where
Yeah.
I'll be like, what if we take that off, guys? Like, be around, check your things, but like, let's call that a little summer break for everybody, basically. So I definitely will make those kind of stances to just show that I understand to your point where what Cornell taught you, that there's a really natural rhythm sometimes that you don't have to push against because it necessarily won't get you more results either.
No.
And so I try to take those, name those moments wherever I can.
Right. Amazing. That's awesome. So what do you think is like one of the successes to getting people to understand that though? You know what I mean? Because there are kids like, and who are coming up who are kind of like, look, we know the millennial, we know what, kind of, what cliche about millennials and wanting to work, right? And Gen Z has made it even more clear that like they want experiences, etc. Like, how do you balance that with an intergenerational kind of like, instead of expecting it, right? That like, of course, we're going to have the 4th of July off, or motivating on the weekends that maybe you do have to work on a weekend because,
Mm-hmm.
how are you talking to them about that and helping them understand that like, your career is also important. Like you have to work, like, you know what I mean? Like
Yes, that's super important. Oh my gosh, so many things on that. I mean, I hate to say this, and I wonder if I'm wrong, but what people on my team might tell me is that you can't always teach a work ethic, and you
yeah.
can't always teach like an inherent hustle, which is needed to get anything done in life, period, a little bit. And so then I will lean on traditional like corporate tools. Like, all right, someone's got to give you some tough feedback. And if it's me, then it's going to be direct. And if it's, within the company culture, it's direct and to the point. It's like, yo, you haven't answered emails at a timely time. You're not, like, are you proud of your work? Like, I think you have to really dig in and ask them, um, and let them know that they're not necessarily meeting the mark, frankly. And you got to do it early and often.
Mhm.
I'm not, and like, I think that's what gets lost sometimes in this conversation around like work-life balance or empathy. It's like, none of this means a lack of standards, or none of
Yeah.
this means a lack of excellence, and none of this means hard conversations don't happen swiftly and promptly. Like, what are we talking about here? So I try to balance that, and then a lot of times, like, we're a fully remote company, which is very hard.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes it's not the right fit. So if you're not able to find that hustle within such a great business like this, that's not perfect, then you might need to find someplace else to work. And so that's the reality.
Yeah. I remember giving like tough, and it wasn't even tough feedback. I think it was super helpful feedback to two women in particular that worked for me. One that was like, what I was doing in my business at that time, it was really important to know who everybody was. So I could know more than they did about themselves and their needs and what they want. And my assistant, that was her job. And I was like, look, it's abundantly clear that you don't care about this. Otherwise you would know who these people are. And she started getting upset thinking I was criticizing her. And I was like, that's okay. You don't have to want to do what I do. But I'm in a company where you have access to a bunch of things. So I want you to figure out what you want to do in this company and let's figure out how to get you there. So that's not bad feedback. That's like, I want you to be happy. I want you to be able to
Yes.
grow. If you don't, if you aren't excited about working for me and doing what I do, then let's find you something. And it was like, and she's like been thriving ever since, and then there's people who do like really want to take advantage of all of those, you know, like vacation days, no limit kind of situation. And there was a woman who was very junior and she had taken, she was telling me it was October about, the days that she was taking off. And that would have been for the year, number 30 and 31 days off in the entire year. Like we grew up at a time when we got 2 weeks off and that was it. You know what I mean? And I was like, look, you have every right to take that time. Okay. But I will tell you, when you're taking off that much time, you're going to miss opportunities to show what you do and be part of bigger picture things. We're not going to stop and wait for you. So just understand, if you're looking to be promoted, you're not going to, unless you can work like 2 times as much as the normal person in half the time, you're not going to be considered for those because you're going to be behind.
I love that.
You know what I mean? And those, like, it's just a reality,
It's just facts.
Right to do it. That's what it says. That does not mean that you're going to continue to rise in your career if you're doing that,
I really love that. Yeah. I actually never thought about it like that because it's like, yes, and it's something, it's like this thing about autonomy that I do try to teach too. Like, to your point, take the vacation, it's yours. But there are trade-offs as long as you're knowing that, understanding that, trying to overcompensate or, like making it work with your goals, then go off. But you can't think that like, hey, you gave me this vacation, I'm going to go take it. And then, yes, I missed this big meeting, but it's fine. It's my vacation. Like, no, everything has a risk analysis basically attached to it. That's empowering, frankly.
Yeah, exactly. You're in charge of that, like, and what you're going to do about it. Amazing.
Exactly.
So you've been doing this a while and, we can talk about all the great advice that you have, but what I'm always super interested in as women is what is the worst advice you've ever received?
I know, it was fun reflecting on this. And you know what I got for you? Stay where you are. Someone told me, a very wealthy man that I worked for that exited his company with me as an employee. And I reached out for advice on when I was thinking about leaving Google. And it was, don't do it. Stay where you are. Google is safe. It's certain, And I just reflected on that. And like, that's the theme of not any bad advice, but you know what I mean? Like, it's always been like, no. Just, you got a good thing going. Stay right there. And I'm always like, get out of here. Like, that's how I know. You didn't tell yourself that. I wanted to say to this man.
No, tell any mentee that was a man that.
Yeah.
But it's always a theme. Like, I've done, this is like, 130 of these episodes. And the theme is always stay where you are, play it safe, put your head down.
Is it? Oh.
Don't trust your gut.
Get out of here.
In other words, men need to stop giving us advice.
Yeah. I rarely take it.
Not all of them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. If people want to find you, how do they do that?
I love that. Thank you for having me. I've been a long-time fan. You can find me at my website, www.carabrothers.com. It's got a little bit of my show that I'm just starting to build. My membership community has my Instagram and LinkedIn. You can find me there.
I love it. And then Starface, what about if they want to find the products there?
Absolutely. You can find us at Target, Walmart, CVS, Walgreens. In the UK, we're in Boots and Superdrug. We're at Ulta here in the US. Online, we should be anywhere that you need us, hopefully, at this point.
I love it. And when are you going to launch your show?
That's a good question. I have basically no audience right now. I am launching it and iterating with like absolute joy and no preciousness. So it's starting, but it's morphing every time. And you can it's called Say It Out Loud, and you can find it on YouTube and TikTok and stuff.
I love it. See, you gotta keep it going no matter what. You're always innovating, right? Always.
Exactly.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Until next time, I'm Jennifer Justice. Thanks to MedJet for supporting the Lady Business podcast. If you're hospitalized or your security is threatened while traveling, they can get you home. I'm a MedJet member and have been for years. Everyone who travels should be. Enroll before your next trip at medjet.com. Thanks for tuning in to Taking Care of Lady Business. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. And also share this episode with a friend who needs that extra push to own their success. If you want more strategy stories and exclusive content, follow us on TikTok at Taking Care of Lady Business, on Instagram at thejustice.dept and Jennifer Justice L, or visit our website at thejusticedept.com. Taking Care of Lady Business is a production of Lady Business LLC.